Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's EBC. We're in St. Cloud this week at Holy Cross Lutheran Church, and we're here because Holy Cross Lutheran Church in a couple of weeks is doing Vacation Bible School. And they're doing the same Vacation Bible School that St. John's just got done with, True North. And I'm holding this sign today that says, "Trust in Jesus." And it's got Jesus' hands on it and then all sorts of colorful stickers on it, because this is something that the kids did while they were in VBS. So one day they were being taught a really simple lesson that they can pray to Jesus, and even though it seems like Jesus is very far away, he hears their prayers. And so they actually had a little sticker, each of them, and they gave the little stickers to their crew leaders, and their crew leaders went up and all of them put everyone's stickers, their prayers to Jesus, on Jesus's hands as a way to emphasize really simply that you can trust in Jesus and that he hears your prayers. Now, I want to use that idea as we think about this week's reading. It's Luke 9 verses 51 to 62. And this reading actually is kind of a tough reading. It doesn't make a lot of sense maybe at first. So what happens is Jesus goes to a Samaritan town on his way to Jerusalem, and the town rejects him. They say, no, you keep moving. And weirdly enough, James and John say to Jesus, "Hey, do you want us to bring down some fire and destroy the town?" And Jesus is very forgiving instead and says, no. He rebukes them, obviously thinking that the town doesn't deserve that fire and brimstone simply because they didn't know who Jesus was and they rejected him. But then you actually have the opposite thing happen, because Jesus then hears somebody say to him, "I'll follow you." And Jesus' response is, actually, "I don't have anywhere to lay my head," sort of implying that you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And then Jesus hears two more people. First, he says to someone, "Follow me." And that person says, "Well, let me go and bury my dead first." And Jesus says, "Let the dead bury their own dead." And then he says, here's another person say, "I'll follow you as long as you let me go and say goodbye to my family first." And Jesus says, no, people who hold on to the plow but then look behind them have no place in the kingdom of heaven. These are harsh words, and it really, if you think about it, it doesn't seem at first to make a lot of sense. We know, for instance, that the people who have rejected Jesus seems very forgiving to, and the people who say that they want to follow Jesus doesn't seem, all that compassionate to. So what's actually going on here? Well, one thing that we know for sure is just this trust in Jesus message that we have here today. So that even though the teaching is already confusing, first step is trust in Jesus, and there's probably something there. All right. The second thing that we know is that actually Jesus is showing his forgiveness to the people who don't know Jesus and who reject Jesus. But then Jesus does hold us to a high standard when we are claiming to be his. And I want to focus on the last of those stories, the person who says, "I'll follow you as long as you give me a chance to go back and do some other things first." And Jesus saying, look, if you're holding on to the plow and looking behind you, you've got no place in the kingdom of heaven. And I don't think that means, by the way, that sort of having done that once, the answer is you're out. You don't get to go to the kingdom of heaven. What I think that's describing is that if you've got work to do to plow that field, you're going to have to pay attention to the work that you're doing. And so if you've got a calling from Jesus, you need to be focusing on the work of that calling. And if instead you're always sort of looking back and trying to sort of set your affairs up, then the answer is that's not what Jesus is asking for. Right? So as we think about these stories this week and how, sort of at first confusing they are, we can take away two important things from them. One, trust in Jesus. And then two, the fact that as our hand is on the plow for whatever work God has in mind for us, let's get about doing it. Everyone, have a great week.